Las Vegas in the morning was like the hot guy in a dark club who, in the light, had buck teeth, hair plugs, and smelled like 50s era bowling alley. Morning Vegas needed to stay in bed until dusk, until the neon and the glass and the full-on commitment to the illusion worked best. That is so juicy and perfect. I love that description. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you.
Yeah, she is the author of And Now She's Gone. And today we're here to talk about it.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm always excited to talk about books and writing and why we do what we do. So thank you.
Yeah, it's really great to have you. So And Now She's Gone was a gripping, fast-paced thriller told from the fresh perspective of Grayson Sykes, and she's a Black female detective, private detective. And Gray brings a unique voice to the story that I thought was so compellingly human and so real. So can you tell us a little about your inspiration for this book?
Women are the inspiration for this book. I know, in our business, crime and thrillers and domestic suspense, sometimes women are these superhuman creatures who aren't scared, who don't sweat, who know everything and everybody. And I want it to go the opposite. I want it, smart, but not profoundly so. I wanted someone that, would wear linen on her first day of work and not realize, while I may look good in the morning, nice and crisp, by the time it's like noon, you're all wrinkled and you have stains everywhere, and that chips away at your confidence. I wanted Gray to be us, very, very smart and ambitious, but will still forget to charge her phone or won't have a pen that works. So I look to me, I look to the women around me who I admire, but they're chips in our china.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And that makes her relatable.
It totally made her relatable. I'm always forgetting to charge my phone.
Yeah. And you're probably like the smartest person in Wisconsin, but your phone's at 30% and the cord is all frayed and crazy.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Grayson Sykes reluctantly takes a job to find a doctor's missing girlfriend and his dog.
Yes. Kenny G. Lovely Kenny G.
So can you set the story up a little bit?
Yes. So Grayson is a private detective, and she is on her very first case with a human. She had a smaller case finding a lost Chihuahua named Cheeto, but now this is her first case. And she is supposed to find Isabel Lincoln, who is the girlfriend of Dr. Ian O'Donnell. And Isabel kind of doesn't want to be found. And she tells Gray that, but Gray has to, this is her job. Her client wants to find his girlfriend who's missing. And this is what she's supposed to do. And while she is looking for Isabel, she's also kind of, running from her past in some ways. So how do you find a woman who doesn't want to be found? And how do you, a woman who doesn't want to be found, avoid being found? So she's conflicted, to say the least.
Yeah, and I thought that was really compelling, a compelling like tie-in to for her to this case. And so the complication, the closer Grays gets to finding Isabel, the farther she seems from solving the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Each step takes her like a little bit closer, but then, she's like more like aware of what's like her past is coming in on her too.
Yeah. And it's weird because it's one reason why, I live in Los Angeles, but a lot of my stories take place here because LA is just like that. You can be 5 miles away from your destination, and yet it will take you an hour and a half to get there. And that's what Gray's case is. It's like her client is like right there. She can sometimes even feel her being close. And yet she's just as far away as she could be, and that's frustrating. And being a new detective, Gray doesn't know what to do with that. So yeah, being confused in a big city is the worst.
And I liked that, she had this like learning curve to like figure things out for her job too.
Yeah.
And they were always like pushing her, now you got to do this. And she was like,
Yeah. And it's hard, especially in a field that's usually, it's a male dominated field. It's a job where you do use subterfuge and lying and costumes and presenting yourself as someone else. And while it's difficult, in some ways, it's what Gray's been doing. I mean, even down to her name, where she isn't and she is,
Right.
So yeah, while it's a perfect fit for who she is, it's difficult because she's trying to become someone.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's go into a little bit about what she's running from.
Yeah.
She was abused by her husband.
Yes.
And he became very violent and threatening.
Right. Yeah. It's it's weird because that storyline, there are two storylines basically in this novel. It's the PI looking for a woman who doesn't want to be found, and it's a domestic abuse story of this woman named Natalie. I forgot her name. Hudson? No, I can't remember, but Natalie. And it's the story of a woman who just wants to be loved. And a lot of times when we want to be loved, when we need love, when we're deprived of it, we will latch on to relationships that aren't healthy for us because, well, he says he loves me and he may do this bad thing, but he'll bring me flowers and he'll take me out to dinner and do all these wonderful things and make me feel like I am special. And who Gray used to be, that's what she lived like. And so it informs everything she does, including her present. And, we're all like that. Our past does inform what we do now and what we do in the future, because that no matter how many times you recreate yourself, there are still pieces of you left. And again, that ties into the story being told in Los Angeles as the city continues to make itself over and tear old things down. Angelenos who've been here all this time, they're like, oh, I remember that used to be the Brown Derby, or that used to be the land where Robert Kennedy was shot. There's a high school there where Robert Kennedy was shot, but it's still that place. It could be 30 other different high schools, but it's still going to be the place that Robert Kennedy was killed. And so that's how I kind of write my stories and do this parallel thing. Yeah. Because your past, no matter how you try and run away from it, it's always there.
Right.
There's always someone who remembers who you used to be. And that could be a good thing.
Yeah.
And that could be a dangerous thing.
Right. That's exactly what I love about writing too, because I feel like our pasts have really informed like who we are.
Yeah.
So I love diving into my character's past and creating, cases and scenarios that, cause them to be who they are, and studying that kind of psychology and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So what Gray does then, she assumes that Isabel has been through the same trauma that she had. And and so as she's, told to stay away from the case, she's even told by a friend of Isabel's, don't come looking for her. Yeah.
No, it's we all want to believe. And for, again, some novels, the victims tend to be lionized, or they're all noble, they're faultless, there are these kind of untouchable angels that, don't really come off the page, and they're just there to move the plot. And I wanted to create a woman, another fully realized woman who has some problems. Isabel isn't all that innocent. She lies. She can be problematic. And I wanted her to be Gray's foil in so many ways. I wanted her to come off the page. And I wanted the people who knew her to kind of be like, you may want to stay away from that, or just be careful, or I have no idea who this woman is. She says she's that, but we weren't all that close. Why'd she tell you that? So I wanted her to be as unreliable as Grayson is, and that was fun
I
to
bet.
actually create, this woman who, you think, oh, she's been abused, she's running from her boyfriend, she must be 100% angelic. And it's like, she is not. She's that, that placid lake that has, the seaweed and hypothermia and the little bugs that climb in your ear and get in your brain and kill you. That's who she is. She's this seemingly placid lake who is so far from placid.
Yeah. And then it isn't really Isabel who is tormenting her. On the jacket, it says cat and mouse game between these two women. But it's a friend of Isabel's who's, calling her and texting her and saying.
Yeah, no, and that's always fun. And that when you're like, ooh, twist, ooh, red herrings, ooh, this is exciting. But, as much as I love twists, I want to earn them. I just don't want to say, hey, and then this thing happened and there's your
Ta-da.
twist. Right. Yeah. And so planting all that, takes time and draft. I do like 6-7 drafts. And each time I go through making sure that I've done enough planting so that when that big reveal does happen, it's earned.
Yeah.
And that whole Taya Isabel thing, that took draft after draft after draft. And it's exciting because it worked. And, I know you probably do this too. I look to real life for some of these, twists, these random crimes where it's like, are you serious? What? That really happened? And I did some of that kind of Googling, making sure that what I'm doing, what I'm writing, what I'm twisting around actually in some ways has happened. So I ground everything in what I've learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and you have to do the research, especially when it comes to crime fiction and the law and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And, fortunately for us as crime and mystery writers, the world just gets crazier and crazier. And so we're going to have plenty of things to write about. Oh my goodness.
Did you have to do any research, like, outside of the box stuff for you for this?
Just more, how PIs work, what their day-to-day is, the whole licensing stuff. And, we're a genre that's full of experts. So I turned to especially David Corbett, who's a remarkable writer, and he's so generous, and he was a private detective back in the day. So, he let me bend his ear and I got, information that way. That was probably the biggest lift for me. And also finding out more about organizations that do help women disappear. I also read a book called, oh crap, I can't remember it, but it's a book, a woman did a podcast. She was a guest on a podcast, and the topic was how people disappear. And they were discussing Olivia Newton-John's ex-boyfriend at the time, who, if you didn't know, he fell off the side of his boat and disappeared. He was thought to be dead. Yeah. And years passed, and they found him in, I think, Puerto Vallarta, because he had been Googling and checking his Facebook to see what people were saying about him, and he was caught. And that's remarkable. But there's this whole industry, like in the Philippines, for instance, where you can buy birth certificates and death certificates of people. And
Yep.
in Belize, you get a body from the coroner and you can become this whole new person.
Yeah,
And
that was a little fascinating there.
that's
I was like,
fascinating. And
whoa,
it's
that's
real. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. We can like,
Someone would go to those lengths,
yeah. And they
and
do, and it's mostly men.
yeah,
Surprise, surprise.
I believe that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so meanwhile, Gray hears from the one person that she's been hiding from, her ex.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine the fear that she must have felt when he first, called her up, and
Yeah.
except you explained it so well. I
Yeah.
was,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
And so what drove you to write about like these types of personal demons?
Well, the domestic abuse part, I've seen it from, older relatives to my girlfriends, from the very kind of, he's just controlling, to the full flown, the big blown out violence, the carrying the smacks. I have a distant cousin who was dating someone we all thought was okay. He wasn't remarkable. He didn't like really set off any alarms. He was just fine. And we get a call late one night that my cousin, her boyfriend had stabbed her like 30 times and it left her for dead on the kitchen floor. And she pretended to be dead until he left. And she called, 911.
Oh
And
my
we're
God.
like, that guy, he nearly killed. What the hell happened there?
Right.
Because he wasn't that kind of toxic alpha who's, you better bring me my plate, and that kind of asshole that where you can smell it. Where it's
Right.
like, oh, it was this quiet, insidious
Oh,
snail munching away at your garden kind of evil.
yeah.
And so
Sometimes those guys are the worst,
right.
The really
And
quiet ones.
that's what scares me. It's like, there are women who are in relationships where they feel it and it's bubbling, and you sleep with your foot on the ground while, because you don't know if he's going to all of a sudden turn, and you're gone.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about that. And I wanted to talk about how, again, you look at abused women and you make these assumptions and you think they have to be a certain type. They're weak and they're sloppy. And some of these women are remarkable and they're smart. And you never guess that when she got home, she'd slump because she couldn't be bigger than what she was. So I wanted to discuss that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to discuss the uneasiness and how we go to all kinds of lengths to become who we should be. And even when you are who you are, you're still kind of like looking over your shoulder,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really important conversation, I think.
It is.
So.
Because, what are we teaching our girl children, but what are we teaching our boy children? That
Exactly.
Violence is the way to keep a woman, or to what? I don't get it. And, there are some readers, and I see it on Goodreads too, that, the trigger warning, domestic violence. And for me as a writer, and I'm sure for you too, I work out things that trigger me through my books. It's like,
Yeah.
I know some of this is difficult. It's difficult for me, which is why I'm writing about it, which is why I'm spending, 9 months of my life writing about these things, because I don't understand them and they scare me. And I'm trying to figure it out for me. Now, if you pick up this book and I'm helping you, that's great. But I'm thinking about me and what keeps me up at night and what I worry about, especially as I watch my beautiful 17-year-old daughter get older and older. And I pray that all that we've done to make her feel whole will stick, and that she doesn't find like this so-called respite in the arms of a jerk.
Right.
An abusive jerk. Now, of course, she'll find a jerk because we all found jerks, and then we left them, and then they left us alone, right? And so I'm hoping
live and learn,
that,
right?
Yeah. It'll be normal. That's what we're looking for. The normal jerks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for writing about it. I think it's something that everyone needs to read about and
Thank
know
you.
about. Um, my last question is just going to be, if will Grayson ever solve any more missing person cases?
I don't have any planned, but I'm hoping, just like my Lou Norton novels, that one day I will get a chance to revisit Grayson and see what she's doing and see how she and, Dominique and even her ex, how is that going to work out? Will he come from where he is now, which is Mexico, to find her? What's going to happen? And
Right.
how will she help other women? And who will try and trick
Exactly.
her? So yeah, there's so much. Like I said, writing crime, we have so many things to talk about. And I hope to do it again with Grayson.
Yeah. Well, I hope she's talking to you soon.
Yes.
I
Me too.
thought it was great. Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Rachel, for being here today.
Thank you for
Tell readers
inviting me.
where they can find you.
www.rachel, Rachel, Howzell, HOW, Z as in zebra, ELL at, no, rachelhowzell.com, or on Twitter. I'm always on Twitter. I'm addicted to Twitter. So that's at Rachel Howzell.
Nice. And we'll see you around soon. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
All right.